That's one of the reasons why relationships tend to fail these days is we want too many things from one person. And we expect one person to be all things across our entire lives, which is very difficult, if not impossible. It's like incredible that it even happens at all.
That didn't used to be the case, did it?
Well, it didn't used to be the case mostly because it was so difficult, if not impossible, to divorce. And there were a lot of social taboos against separation.
But also, I would have been living in like a community where I could have got, we're living much more isolated and lonely now. So I would have been able, the village would have given me some of those things that I'm looking for in terms of value. I would have had a big social structure around me.
Absolutely. I talk about that in the book, is that we used to live in small communities where we actually had lots of different kinds of relationships with lots of different people, and also in extended kin networks in intergenerational housing, for instance. And so with the advent of the nuclear family and the dissolution of real community, we expect our partner to be all things, to be an entire village and an extended family. And that's just really not possible. I mean, the love marriage in particular may even be a paradox in terms, because you want kind of, let's say, an emotionally stable, safe companion who is also your passionate lover and sexual partner.
Spontaneous, risky.
So difficult,
novel.
if not impossible.
Yeah.
Like you certainly can't do both of those things at the same time. The best you can hope for is to kind of vacillate between the two of them.
Yeah.
To kind of create a proportion, just enough passion or spontaneity and risk to keep the kind of bedroom alive, but still maintaining the stability and long-term security of the relationship. It's very difficult to manage.
I find this difficult. I find it difficult to be in. I'm in a 5-year relationship now. I'm like, how do you go for another 50 years? Because I with the same person and maintain the spontaneity and the excitement for 50 years, and being the kind of novel, sexually attractive, whatever, while also being stable, safe, predictable, comfortable, present at the same time. Like they feel like hard. Paradoxes.
It's very hard, and you have to be creative.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of the reason why that places like Victoria's Secret exist. You know what I'm saying? It's like 21-year-old girls aren't shopping there, really. Mm. So if you're not willing to actually open up your relationship, then you have to kind of make your partner feel new, which could mean different outfits. It could mean play and entering in and experimenting with different roles behind closed doors. It can also just mean travel.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that really seems to spark sex life in couples is foreign bed sheets. And I think that you've just sort of changed the context, and that's enough of a spark of novelty to bring some of the sexual interest back for the man. I think novelty is more important for men than for women.
One of the things that really works in my relationship that I've observed is just being away.
Absolutely.
So I come out here for, I'm out here for a couple of weeks now. I'm not going to see and then I was doing Dragon's Den before this in the UK. So I was away for a while then. In total, I wouldn't have seen my partner for about 4 weeks. So when I come back, it's kind of like they're a new person.
It is. I mean, one of the things about what made relationships work back in the day is men didn't really spend a lot of time with women and vice versa. James Sexton, the divorce lawyer, he had this great line on the Softwood Underbelly interview when he was responding to the spike in divorces during COVID, when everybody was shut down and forced into close company with each other for extended periods of time. He said that men and women signed up for better or for worse, but not for lunch. It's really hard to just be in each other's space all the time. And the fact of the matter is, when we lived in extended kin networks and communities, men had a bunch of men to do things with, and women had a bunch of women to talk to. And even in the 50s, which is kind of romanticized as the paragon of conservative traditional marriage, that was the time when the man was a traveling salesman and he was on the road for 200 days out of the year. Having an office has kept more marriages alive than probably any other toy or therapy or intervention on the planet. Like, you need to leave. You need to leave. And it's even harder to do that with the advent of cellular technology. It's like being physically absent doesn't matter if the whole time you're there, I know where you are at all times because I've put a tracking thing on your phone and I'm constantly communicating with you throughout the day. Like, now there's no uncertainty. There's no mystery. There's no unknown. So when we get back together, what do we have to talk about? I'm not interested in you because I believe you're an entirely known entity. You need to have something that I don't know yet to attract my interest and curiosity, which is the spark that eventually potentially leads to passion and sexual intimacy.
But what does this say about the very nature of monogamy? Because if you need to, this doesn't feel like a natural thing. If I go back, once upon a time, we couldn't just get on a plane or go to the office. We would presumably be around each other most of the time. I'm trying to understand if you think like monogamy is quote unquote natural.
Oh, probably not. Like, I think that humans are probably monogamish, but like strict monogamy, which should be really rigidly and explicitly defined by the individuals in question, because there's clearly behaviors that are in the gray zone, like is harmless flirting cheating? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That some people might say, no, that's just part of the fun of being a social human being and it's not going to lead to anything. And other people might think, no, that's totally inappropriate and incorrect. So these things need to be discussed. Monogamy isn't just something that everybody agrees on and understands what that means. But yeah, I think that it's generally not something that we do naturally. One way to think about this is monogamy actually benefits men on a utilitarian perspective, because there's generally more women than there are for men. If you maintain strict social monogamy, we have this many men and this many women, what that means is that even the worst men in society, in that community, can be functionally guaranteed of a wife.
I want to really close off on this point about exchanging values, and that's really what a relationship is. When I spoke to James Sexton, the divorce lawyer you referenced there, we started talking about gold diggers, and he, would reference divorce cases where there's a 70-year-old, significantly overweight man who's, with a 30-year-old woman. And I said to him, is that not gold digging? And I said, is that love? And his response to me, I'll always remember it, was he said, well, it's a transaction. She's getting something from him. And in the words that you've described, it might be safety, it might be, I don't know, money or whatever. And he's also getting something from her, which is, I guess, a feeling. I guess it's an emotional feeling.
Presumably he's getting sex.
Sex, yeah.
And he's getting the opportunity to walk in the door with a beautiful 30-year-old on his arm, which is certainly a bump to his ego, but is also good for the social game. The fact of the matter is that most men would have sex with most women, but most women would not have sex with most men. So we also know that men's threshold for selection is much lower than women's.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.